Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Vicki. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Lora Perry, and we met synchronistically online. It's actually a really beautiful story. And before we even delve into like me asking you questions, I actually want to share a quick tidbit about you in an observation that I made about you. We were all posting on Facebook, just talking about our different, business ideas. And I think one of the most wonderful things, but also challenging things about people who are entrepreneurs is that we're bursting with ideas, right? There are people who burst with ideas and have no clue as to how to execute them. And then there are people who can execute all day long, but aren't bursting with ideas, right? So I'm definitely on the other spectrum where I have 100 ideas a minute, but then it becomes really difficult for me to execute on things. So Lora was kind enough to reach out and to say, like, hey, I do this for a living. I'm happy to give you some ideas, perspectives, in terms of, where and how you could take your ideas forward. And I just want to say, like, thank you, just genuinely thank you. The kindness of a stranger, you're no longer a stranger to me. I feel like we're now friends. But you didn't even know me and you offered that to me. And it was such kindness. And I just genuinely want to thank you. And so with that, I'm going to ask you my favorite question of all, and I ask this of all my guests, and that question is, who are you, Lora?
Who am I? Wow, that's such a big question because I'm very spiritual, first of all. My journey has been very spiritual for a number of years. So when people ask me that, I am almost a container for things to come through. And knowing that Lora is, an avatar that I play in life, and I'm a container for things to come through. Who I am is, unconditional love and passion and excitement for all of you guys that are out here creating. Because I've been in that world where I'm creating and I'm, just having fun doing all this. And then I stepped back and said, I want to help the creators of the new earth, the new world, the ones that are bringing this up. And so to sum it up, I would say that's who I am. I find so much joy and passion in doing that. Coming to that point of that understanding of myself has been a journey in itself, right? Because we're all human and we're all having this human experience on this physical plane. So it hasn't always been like, that it was a lot of questions for a lot of years, but ultimately that's who I am. I'm just so passionate and excited for the way changers and the new earth, the ones that are making it. Like, we're really you guys are redefining what it is to live on this planet, and it's amazing. And I get to watch it and I get to help where I can. And yeah, so ultimately that's who I am.
Oh, I love that answer. I love that answer. And you took so many words out of my mouth. So I would have said a lot of similar things. So that's so beautiful to hear. You talked about like the journey to get to where you are and the questions that you asked yourself along the way. And I'm sure that the questions even along the way continue to evolve and change and inform, the way that you continue to evolve and change and grow and expand. And really, like, when you think about it, coming from a spiritual lens, right? That's what we're here to do. We're here to grow, expand, learn. Like, the soul, it like just yearns for exploration, for experiences, for expansion. And, if you listen to the likes of Eckhart Tolle, it's not about good or bad. There's no good or bad, right? There just is. There's an isness to all of it, right? So would love for you to share in terms of your journey and the types of questions that perhaps you were asking yourself at the beginning, and then how that continued to evolve for you and how that informed where you are now, or influenced where you are now.
Yeah. So I've always been a spiritual person. I think I lost some touch with that probably about 10 years ago. I had just got a little lost, a lot of self-love issues, not really understanding what it meant to love myself on a really deep level, which led some questionable decisions that were not really guided by myself. It was just things I thought that I had to do. And because of that, I ended up in a really, really hard spot with dealing with trauma, PTSD, severe dissociative anxiety, just the things that make your quality of life questionable. Like, if this is living, I can't do it, you know? But before all of that had happened, I loved helping people. I've always loved helping people, but I've always been the one to lend a hand out to someone in need and to help them through their issues, their challenges, their problems. As a paralegal, I did that. As an investigator, I did that. I had a ton of fun, up to the point to where my life just started to crumble. And the questions that I asked myself is, why is this happening? Why can't I just go on life as usual, you know? And it's because I was on some kind of autopilot where I wasn't consciously living in every moment, maybe just part of the time, right? And life has a way of changing for us. It's always for us. Everything is for us. It's never to us. But I had become a victim of what is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? You know, and then you go into the survival mode of what society tells you. And I was asking those questions. Well, is it true that I am only going to be abundant if I have money? Is that really the definition of abundance? You know, what is, you know, that was just one question. What is the nervous system? How can I heal myself? And the interesting thing is that I've studied so many subjects. You know, they call that the seeker, right? The one that's looking out, like yoga, and I studied shamanism. I'm just looking at my books here. I studied crystals. I studied natural healing, energy healing, psychology. The list literally goes on and on and on of the things that I studied. And what I noticed is that every time I found something that helped a little bit, it was actually redirecting me to the internal self. And I thought that was fascinating. So all the questions that you find and you're like, that helps, it's just redirecting you where it's been all along, is inside of you.
Oh my God, I want to come back to that. But the one question I have for you is, and I think so many of us struggle with this, and especially at the onset of our journeys, is you talked a little bit about self-love, and how were your challenges with self-love manifesting in your life, in terms of like, what were you going through or doing, being as that you later on realized were due to your lack of self-love?
You know, that's a really good question, because in my career and in my finances and in all that, it was fine. You know, everything that I stepped up to the plate to be, where I think there's different areas in life where when you're not nurturing yourself, it's very apparent. And mine was in relationships. And I think that a lot of people that have that self-love challenge is going to have challenges with other relationships too. I didn't always have that. I think what happened was I was in like a challenging relationship, and then I said, and it was like 8 years long, and I said, I just don't want to do this. I want to settle down. And I found somebody that looked good on paper. And then I just catered to that person, thinking that that's how you loved someone. And in reality, although I was loving them, I was giving them so much of myself and not leaving enough for me when it came to doing something just for me other than my career, you know, because that still even was catering to other people in a sense. So self-forgiveness and looking at everything that made me who I am, like growing up without a father and having like challenges with men, you know, and it's actually really interesting because I do believe that we are born into situations that are going to teach us the things that we want to learn on a physical level. We choose that. So there are things that I just did not know and I could not have known, and that a lot of us just can't know when it comes to self-love because we were never taught. And so then once we learn how to love ourselves and we can learn to forgive ourselves for getting ourselves in the situations that we didn't prefer, we can start really forgiving other people, and letting go. So, but yeah, I didn't take any time for me. I was caring for my kids and not for me. I was caring for my spouse and not really for me. I was caring for other people and my health was declining. So I think it can manifest in many ways, but I do believe that, our body is an expression of our consciousness as well. So if you're not taking care of you, it's going to manifest in your health.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. I went through something actually extremely similar, and I write about that very authentically on my website, but it took me a really long time. I don't know if you kind of went through the same thing where I became comfortable even talking about it very authentically because it was something that I held on to. And, the journey that I went through, and I don't know if this will sound familiar, is that on the outside, it looked like I had the absolute perfect life. Like I had the career, I had the house, I had the kids, I had all the physical things, right? Were right, we're on the right trajectory to live the perfect life, right? I went to the right school, I married the right guy, I had the right kids, I lived in the right town, right? Like everything was right. And I love the way that you said it was on paper. And that's exactly where I was at. And then, I absolutely came to a point where I felt emptiness. I don't know if you had experienced emptiness, just like complete emptiness. And you ask yourself, if my life is so perfect and it should be perfect, then why do I feel the way that I feel? And the way that lack of self-love manifested for me was lack of true self-confidence. On the outside, I looked confident. At work and meetings, I came across as being confident, but it wasn't true confidence. I had a hard time raising my hand, and I'm going to say raising my hand in life. It wasn't just about I deserve the promotion. It was I deserve to take an hour for myself. I deserve to do things that are just for me, because I was this vessel that was always giving, giving, giving. And I actually have a really funny story where one day I'm like, I'm going to take all of these classes. And we were sitting around the dining room table and my children full on flipped out. Mommy, you're never going to be around. What do you mean you're going to take all of these classes? My husband flipped out, like, I'm never going to see you again. And I said, do you guys hear yourself? Each and every one of you is talking about how I'm not going to be giving you. Well, who is giving me? Who is giving me? And it took me about 2 years of being on my journey to even have the courage to say that, because I always believed that if I did that, it was selfish. And I hear that over and over again, especially from people who are people pleasers in one way or another, right? And I think that that's just something that is really hard to overcome. I don't know if you want to kind of expand on that a little bit more, but then I definitely want to talk about like the self that you are today and really focus and pivot the conversation to that. But I just want to give you a chance to react and respond.
Yeah. So, well, there's a lot of things that come to mind, obviously. I have a lot of insights when we have conversations like this. But kind of drawing a blank what I was going to say. But yes, when the supporters of the world support, and they stop, the support underneath them breaks down. And then what ends up happening is they go into like the toxic support where everything's being taken from them. And that is energetically, spiritually, as well as like, like you said, you had a hard time raising your hand to life. Well, when it gets into like a toxic space, confidence feels like arrogance, right? I've heard that before, where like speaking up for yourself feels like you're too much for people. Like saying what you want feels really selfish. And it's because we just tend to go so much into that supporter role where we don't have any boundaries. because we were never maybe taught and that's part of the life lesson that you signed up for, right? Because you couldn't have known what you didn't know before you learned it. So, I think that's the most part of it. And then people get used to it, right? They get used to it, and then you're always there. And the other thing is that nobody knows your boundaries unless you tell them or unless you draw them. Like, nobody can know what that means because they don't know our strength. And to, the partner, to the children, we're indestructible as women. And as, and until you speak up and say, I'm at my limit, we're going to pivot to something else, nobody will ever know. So that's why it's like respectful to communicate, with everybody and say, I'm not going to do that. And that's why no is so important too, right? Just saying, no, I can't do that, or let's do this instead. Nobody will ever know what our boundaries are unless we draw them and make them clear. And then the people that you want in your life can just respect those automatically. It's not they have to learn them when you're midway into a relationship, like, oh, this is a new version of this person. Okay. But other than that, yeah. And it's good to be a supporter, right? It's good to be a supporter of whatever collective you're supporting, but there is a toxic trait to almost every, type of personality or type of personality aspect that can really backfire if you don't know about yourself. So that's all about knowing thyself, right?
Yeah, it's that self-discovery journey. And I find that there's like a pattern around having to go through whatever awakening, right? Whatever will awaken you. Like, there's usually something that will break down in your life that will cause the awakening, that will cause, and I'm gonna call awakening like questioning. I think that was like the biggest thing, is that's when I started to question what was, and to kind of start to observe that, oh, maybe it could or should be otherwise, and why isn't it, or why is it right the way that it is. So but that self-discovery journey and discovering your own inner power, dare I say, right? Because I think that so many of us are maybe conditioned, or we grow up believing that we're so small. And then after your awakening and you do go through these difficult moments in your life, you start to discover your inner strength, the strength that you never believed was really there, right? And that starts to come through, and that starts to shine so brightly. So, and I find that to be kind of like a commonality amongst a lot of people that I speak to. So, it's kind of validating to see that we kind of like go through those stages, I'm going to call it, but every journey is different. So I want to know more about, like, who are you today? What are you doing? You started to a little bit allude to, to what you're doing today, but I'd really love for you to start to shine a light in terms of, like, what is it that you do today, and how did you get here? Like, how did you arrive here? Because you've worn so many different hats in your life, right? All of these different personas that you've been. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I could start that by, what you just said about the human transformation and the human condition. I went through the same thing. And just to start the answer with the tail end of a response to that, is that when we are, born into the world, we're kind of living on the surface, and we're taught to kind of live on the surface because society teaches you that. And as that, dark night of the soul starts, or the questioning or whatever that really makes you think there's got to be more to life, that's where the peeling of the onion starts, right? And what I learned about myself is every time I take a peeling of the onion, there's a healing, and there's also a spark of light that comes with that. So in every shadow and every darkness and every healing, there's light that comes through. So every layer of healing I did, I learned more about myself. And I don't believe that the layers ever stop. They might get thinner, and then big chunks can come off, and then they get a little thinner for a while. And so with saying that, my healing journey has been, martial arts actually helped me heal so much. I actually started martial arts about 7 years ago, and I showed up every day And I said, I told myself, I was in trauma. I told myself, as long as I'm getting better, I'm going to keep showing up. And what I noticed is that it really helped my mind and body connection so that I could function. And the exercise also helped me ground myself. So the 7 years that I've been practicing martial arts has been a peeling of the onion. And when I didn't have martial arts, I had yoga, and I became a certified instructor as a tool to help me get better and to help peel more of that onion, right? And every time I got a chunk off of there, I was like, oh, I'm gonna help people with this, and then I'm like, oh, I like this, I'm gonna help people with this. And then I'm like, wow, I can learn this. So if you love to learn like me, you realize that you can learn anything. And eventually I love to teach. I teach martial arts to women. And I teach yoga to anybody who wants to learn. And then eventually I realized, like, I just have a passion for living, and I have a passion for so much, and I can teach anything, right? So what led me on this journey through that is knowing that we all have a passion. Every single one of us are here with a passion. And that's actually the way that your higher self talks to you, is through that energy, because it communicates with you through passion and excitement and joy and these really high vibrational energies that people are experiencing all the time, but they don't know what they mean. And in fact, it's information from your higher self saying, this is your guidance, I'm your compass, follow this excitement, don't hold any expectation to it, because the higher self knows way more than our small minds do. And it's always guiding us. And I said, so if everybody has a passion and it's in alignment with their purpose, and there's only a small percentage of people on earth following that, where would we be if more people were to listen to that and to follow that? Because that right there, I truly believe, is going to change the world. If people could just get in tune with that part of them and follow it and listen, they would be where they need to be who they are or who they want to be, and to help the people they want to help.
Lora, you used the phrase right now, and you said, if they're in alignment with their purpose. And this is something that I have to be honest with you, that I've questioned myself a lot on, like, what the heck is my purpose? Like, I look around, I'm kind of a lot like you in the sense that I love to learn, I love to do different things. And I feel like I have 1,000 different passions, and I can get excited about 10 different things simultaneously.
Oh, yeah.
Right? My challenges in life. But I remember a lot of times, like, reading this thing of saying, like, step into your purpose, or like explore your purpose. And I'd be like, I literally don't know what you're saying to me. And right, it's the mind, right? The mind wants a definition, like this little box of the purpose. So Victoria, your purpose is, right? But it's not so cut and dry. So I would love for you to impart some wisdom around, like, how would you know? And the soul is knowing. So how would you know that something is your purpose? You started to talk a little bit about, like, if you're in passion and joy and fun, if like you're in that energy, then you're in purpose. But is there anything else that you could share to help somebody navigate through, like, especially at the onset when you're not comfortable surrendering, like, and just being like, all right, well, let it be whatever it's gonna be, right? And releasing the outcome. So for somebody who's kind of like a little bit newer to it, how would you, like, help someone navigate through that maze?
Good question. So much of our purpose is to have a life experience. Like, it can really be that simple. If someone says, I don't really have a purpose, I'm just here to live. Because ultimately, that is what we're here for. We're having a real experience of an illusion of time, like if you wanted to get into quantum physics, but we're having a real experience, right? So the other thing about that is we all have access to infinite wisdom. We all have access to universal mind, and we all have access to universal consciousness, which is our collective consciousness. That in itself, since we all have access and are a part of universal mind, which is that constant wisdom that it runs through everything in nature, is beautiful to be able to sit and live in that space and to create from. And universal thought is essentially a thought energy that comes and goes all day, every day. You probably have 70,000, I don't know what the number they came up with, but universal thought is a tool to where your ideas come from. That's your higher mind just saying, here's idea, but our free will allows us to pull from those ideas and say, here's one I want to take, or here's one that I don't really care about, the pH levels in the soil outside. So I'm not going to really go with that idea. But so another purpose is to use thought in a way that helps us create, because we're creative beings, and to access and notice thought as a tool, not use it inappropriately where we bash ourselves, because a lot of people get into that habit, but also to look at ourselves as a collective consciousness, like I said, that universal consciousness, and say, how can I take the thought ideas that are coming and ground them into this physical reality to help everybody? And what I believe, and in my own experience, is that we don't know what we signed up for because we've forgotten. We've just forgotten because we thought it would be fun to remember. And we really do remember eventually, but our purpose for each of us is going to be different, and it's going to be what's in alignment with those feelings that you're getting when you feel that you are actually creating the highest expression of yourself. You're like, yes, I am these 100 different things, and I feel great about it. The problem is that we've been brought up in a factory worker kind of mentality back in 100, 200 years ago, where that was just your job. You work in a factory. Well, people are multidimensional now, more so. And so we have all these facets of this hologram within us too that are coming to shine through. So there's no language to really define, this is what my purpose is, or we want that because it helps us clarify things and categorize and compartmentalize a little bit more. But in reality, this new breed of human that's awakening is so much more than one label or one title. And again, we're creating the roles that we're making. So we're creating the new careers, we're creating the new jobs, like naturopathic doctor is a term that hasn't been around as popular, I'll at least say, as what in Western medicine, right? So my point is that we're creating these new things. We are the new creators. And so when it comes to your purpose and my purpose, it's going to be something we're actually creating by following those feelings of passion and joy and excitement. And it's going to be a lot bigger than we can imagine, because we are used to those thinking patterns of, let me just put this in a box. I try to put myself in a box all the time. I caught myself doing it again just recently, like trying to, get down on a niche so tiny. I'm like, oh, I can't do it. I already feel constricted. So I'm just going to talk about this today, But overall, if you're living in joy and you're listening to yourself, if you can listen to yourself, you're in line with your purpose. If you're expressing yourself to your highest expression, you're living in your purpose. And what is created from that, it depends a lot on our free will and what we're doing for the world. So.
Oh, I love that. I think it's so hard though to listen to yourself. Like, I know one of the things I've always struggled with personally is just not trusting myself, not trusting, like, people would talk to me and they'd be like, you are super intuitive, right? And I'd be like, what do you mean I'm not intuitive? Like, no way am I intuitive. And they'd be like, you're super intuitive, right? And I think that, again, it's part of that growth and the evolution that we go through as we grow spiritually, right? As we learn to trust ourselves and we learn to trust to that inner voice that, comes to you. But I think that it also comes with, I'm going to say time, right? Because time doesn't really exist, but it comes with experiences and, with just going through more and more of those like trial and error experiences. And you start to understand like, oh, that's an intuitive hit. Maybe I should follow that, right? So tell me what you're doing today and the types of people that you're working with, and maybe like one super awesome example of like someone that you work with and, just really stands out in your mind, and why does it stand out in your mind?
Well, today I love reaching out and just helping, the new way makers. If they haven't figured out yet how to listen to their higher selves, I like to guide them on that, because they're constantly talking. Your higher self is constantly sending you signs and signals and yelling at you to do things through energy. It talks to you through energy. And intuition is a little bit different because it is the sight from within, right? And, like you said, people have to develop that. So it's something that you kind of learn on your own. But I'll say that we don't all know our gifts until we see what our gift is not, or until we see another person in front of us who's reflecting onto us what that gift might be, because we've been in our own self for so long now, right? So I just really love to help people find some grounding. And also, one of the things that I've been really enjoying lately is those of us who have gone up to the 5D spiritual realm, and we're like hanging out there, and we're like, we don't really want to do anything on earth. We're just going to hang out here because it's great. And I understand all of this esoteric stuff, and I get energy better than I get people, and that's great. And man, I was there for a long time and I loved it, but then, you can't get bored of it, but what'll happen eventually is you keep getting nudges to go back down. You're like, go back down to earth and do this, or go do that. And you're like, but that takes my logical mind and I want to stay over here. And eventually what happens is you realize, through intuition or through your higher self, or just through pure struggle because of resistance, you realize that you have a purpose here and you have something that you need to do or you wouldn't be here. You're not done if you're here. And if your heart's beating, you have a purpose, and that means that you have a passion. So I like to be able to allow those creators that have been up in the ether for so long, or at least not allow, but rather help them ground what they learned and turn it into something physical. Because when we create, we're basically taking information all the way through the crown chakra down to the earth, and through the root chakra down to the earth. So we're grounding all these ideas in physical reality. And it can be really challenging when we have to relearn the process of creation. It's not something we had to learn when we were a kid, right? It's something that we forgot because trauma or whatever catalyst had you come up to your spiritual awakening point and all that. So I really like helping spiritual individuals grow businesses through their ideas and what they're passionate about. Because when they come and they do that and they create something in the world, we are waiting for that. People are waiting for that person to step into those shoes. Like the people that they're meant to serve are waiting. And everybody's eager to move on, right? And actually make something of their life while they're still here, because you're here. So it's like, okay, we know all this information from the 5D, but we still live in a physical world. We still live in this physical plane. So you don't have to learn how to make money, but money is just another form of abundance, just as friendship and love and healthy relationships. They're all just forms of abundance. It's all just energy. So you might as well just make a bunch of money and then do whatever you want with it. If you want to donate it to charity, because it's a tool for those of us who could probably use it in a really powerful way that a lot of people aren't, when they're conscious.
And I love what Bob Proctor actually used to say. He used to say, money is energy. Money is energy, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I said to my mom yesterday, we were driving, and again, like, she's a different generation. And we were talking whatever. And then she goes, oh, like, I don't need a lot of money. Money doesn't really bring you all that much happiness. And I said, Mom, money is just energy. I have an amazing relationship with money. I love money. I love my health. I love my relationships. I view it as just one of those energetic, like, it's just energy. Right. And I feel like there's such a like taboo around loving, like, you're not saying you're worshiping money. It's just that you have a good relationship with it. Like, you don't taboo it. You don't, having money doesn't make you bad. Just like loving yourself doesn't make you selfish, right? It's like the same kind of like parallels that we grow up with, right? Like that we're conditioned into from generation to generation. So, anyways, I know that we're at least like 30 minutes into our conversation at this point, and I could really talk to you forever. I would love for you to maybe share like one success story with somebody that you worked with and how you've helped them transform and really come into their own. And then maybe we can just go into a couple of wrap-up questions.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been noticing happening a lot is, and I'll try to deal with this in one, but I might have to break it up in two because everybody's on a journey in the beginning, so there's a transformation that happens, but it's not always overnight. But the one is that we don't have a lot of clarity when we are learning about ourselves and in what we're meant to do for the world. That's just something that happens. But what I noticed about this young lady, I'll just call her Annie, is that she didn't have a lot of clarity what she was supposed to do or what she was meant to do. But she found an interest and she just slowly started doing lives on Facebook. And looking at her, you wouldn't know that she didn't know what she was supposed to be doing. Like, it literally on the outside looks like she's doing exactly what she's supposed to be. So she's got that. We have that question, the questions that we have on the inside is not always what people see on the outside. We're always going to have those questions, right? So the transformation that she had just by having a few sessions with her is that she just started taking action. And it's, imperfect action. And through that imperfect action, she's learning what works and what doesn't work. And I've noticed that her lives have more and more people. Her YouTube channel is starting to blow up. And I'm just like, wow. So the big thing is that we're already doing it. As long as you're taking action, you're already doing it. When we take one step, the universe will take two, right? So it pushes us and it helps us, and we're not solely responsible for everything. Our ego will tell us that we are, but it's the universe is creating with us. So we always try to make something like black and white, or I got to do this and it'll be perfect. But in reality, the journey is the purpose, and we're looking at those destination points, in between. So she is doing on the outside, I see her doing everything she's wanted to do and more. But on the inside, she's still going through a lot of that questioning. And it's quite a beautiful transformation to see, because she's taking action, she's taking the steps, the universe is going right there. And she's also realizing that when we do lives and we're in engagements like this, we know exactly what we need to know when we need to know it. You don't have to remember anything. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to say, oh, I was going to say this, but that's gone now. So this is what's meant to come through, right? For this video specifically, I'm like, oh, this is what's meant to come through, because that's what's coming through. And so that's a beautiful transformation that she's making, and I get to watch that. And then the other thing is with money blocks and the spiritual. I've worked with a few people that have these spiritual money blocks. Like you said, like they think it's wrong to want money or have a lot of money, or it feels bad. And really that's just the society's put all that weight on that. And it's just another form of abundance. And it's okay to be rich. It's okay to have a ton of money. It's okay to have more than you need. You get to do whatever you want with it. And I've had quite a few people say, I don't want to charge for my service. I just want to give it away for free. But in reality, the people that are coming to you, they're the hero, they're the hero. They're coming to you to change their life. And they don't have a problem paying for stuff. We're the ones that generally have that problem. So yeah, that's another transformation I've seen a lot, especially with those of us who are spiritual and we haven't quite accepted that society's had us hyper-focus on money as one form of abundance and has told us that that's the only form of abundance, and realizing that that's not necessarily true. I could probably come up with 25 different kinds of abundance. And once people realize how abundant they really are, and then they're accepting money too, it's just another one that you get to enjoy. So yeah, I mean, I could talk all day about transformations, but those are two that I've kind of, it's been recently the most prevalent. Yeah.
I love what you said about not feeling comfortable asking, charging people for money, because I'm totally that person. When you were saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, she's talking about me, because and what's funny is that you can have a great relationship with money in other aspects of your life, but not when it comes to coaching or, the different classes that you're creating or digital courses or what have you, right? And it's been truly, like you said, a block. It literally was a block for me for a very, very long time. So I'm just launching something on Saturday where for the first time, I'm going to charge people for it. And it is a huge imperfect step for me, but it is a step forward. I'm making it so ridiculously cheap because again, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to charge people a lot of money. But it's kind of like going live, like you said, she does lives. It's doing that live for the first time, right? And stepping into that. So I love the examples, and I think so many of us can relate to that. No matter where you are on the journey, whether it's the beginning, the middle, or you've been doing this for a long time, because we all struggle with this. So if people want to find you, how and where can they find you? Because I love all your channels. So please
yeah. So great question. So my best page is 44 Lora Perry. That's my Facebook page. I post there every single day. And the other best way to go get a hold of me right now is there's a Facebook group called Conscious Co-working, which it's a newer group because I'm trying to just cater to the spiritual creators. I do have a YouTube and everything else, but I'm actually redoing those. I actually have multiple YouTube channels. I'm funneling them all into one. And the name of that channel will also be 44 Lora Perry as soon as I can get in and change it. But yeah, my Facebook page is the best way right now to just message me or connect and follow along.
Absolutely. And I'm going to put all of your ways to get in touch with you and all of your social handles and your Facebook pages absolutely in the description and in the notes section. But this was amazing. I loved our conversation. Is there a question I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
A million, probably. A million. I love to talk and I love to answer questions. There's a million questions.
So maybe we'll have to do a part 2 then someday.
Yeah. No, but just to wrap up is that, I really just encourage people to take a step towards your passion. If you know what it is, if you don't take a step to finding out, listen to yourself. If it, we're always talking to ourselves, listen to the energies that you feel. Our emotions are, the higher vibration emotions are very, in tune with what we should be listening to. And just know, like I've said multiple times, the purpose is the journey itself. You might find destination points in there, but you're going to get there and you might not even know that you did. I've done that so many times. I've meet milestones and I didn't even know that I did. I was like, oh, I was trying to do that for 2 years. Cool. So the purpose is the experience. It is the journey. It is what you're learning. It's the people you meet. It's your experience. So I think when people look at it in that light, it really helps us be present and more in tune to our own wisdom than always trying to reach something outside of us.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a great summary of kind of what we've talked about, where we started, and kind of So that's absolutely beautiful. I have so loved our conversation, and I hope that it's actually one of many to come, because you're one of those people who, again, like a polymath, I think, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Like, has done so many things. Like, I have 1,000 questions about your experiences with martial arts, but we'll save that for another conversation.
Yes.
A lot more to come from Lora. But thank you again for your time and for this insightful conversation. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you.
I will. Thank you. You too. Bye.